so much. Wow. You know how to make a guy from Indiana feel right at home.
Dice que
Thank
se
you so much
siente
to our
en casa
phenomenal
en
supporters.
Estado de
Thanks to
Virginia.
everybody for joining us today. This is what it feels like to build a new kind of presidency, and you are right in the middle of it. We are so thrilled to be here. I'll be honest, we're running on adrenaline. 24 hours ago, we were in Nevada. Last night, we were in Colorado. This morning, we were in church in South Carolina. And now I'm thrilled to join you right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Dice que ayer estaba en Las Vegas, Nevada, y luego pasó
Whereas, you
por
know,
Carolina del Sur esta mañana.
just
para llegar
over
acá
a
a
week
Virginia.
from now is an opportunity to make history, an opportunity to change the course of this country, and so much depends on the choice that we are about to make.
Dice que quiere cambiar
If
el
you've ever
rumbo
seen me
de
speak, you
este
know how
país.
I like to begin, which is to invite everybody to form in your own mind, your own version of the image that guides this whole campaign. And that is how it's going to feel the first time that that sun comes up over the Potomac and Donald Trump is no longer the president of the United States.
Invita a cambiar el curso de este país, esperando que Dios y las personas le den una nueva versión
Feels good
a
to
los
think
hechos
about it.
importantes en el Potomac una vez que Donald Trump no esté más en el
Aren't you
poder.
ready to put the chaos behind us? Want
Quiere
to feel
poner el
good to put
caos
the
detrás
cruelty behind us?
y el odio.
Who's ready to put the tweets behind us?
Quiere poner los
It's going to be a
tweets
good day.
detrás.
And we have a responsibility to make sure that day comes about sooner rather
Tienen una
than later.
responsabilidad de que esto pase.
The good news about being a voter in 2020 is we have that chance. If you
La
watch
noticia
what
buena
played
que
out
tienen los
in Mitch
votantes del
McConnell's Senate
2020
during
es
this
que pueden
impeachment
cambiar
trial,
el curso de este país. En
if
este
you
momento
felt the
habla del
frustration,
impeachment.
if you felt the exhaustion,
Dicen que las
maybe
personas se
even
sienten
felt that
frustración y
terrible
cansancio.
temptation to turn it all off and walk away. Now is our chance to remember that they might have been the jury then, but the verdict is up to us now on this president and on those senators who protected him. Let's
Dice que a
use
pesar
that
que el
vote wisely.
juicio donde el presidente Donald Trump no fue condenado,
But
el
that
juicio final la
means
tienen las
that in a
personas.
few short days, we could go one way or the other as a party. So much depends on getting this right. Now, I respect my friend Senator Sanders. I believe the ideals he talks about are ideals we all share. But I also believe that the way we will build the movement to defeat Donald Trump is to call people into our tents, not to call them names online.
Dice que la mejor manera de combatir a Donald Trump es tener respeto.
The vision of replacing this president is one that speaks to my fellow diehard Democrats, yes. But we are also calling out to the independents. And we are delighted to see some of the ranks of what I like to call future former Republicans signing up for this, and you are welcome to be
También
on
invita
side.
a los
We can do
republicanos
this
y a los independientes
together.
y cambiar esto,
And you are
cambiar el
welcome.
curso. Todo el mundo es
But
bienvenido.
that means building a tent big enough to draw us in and harnessing, galvanizing, mobilizing, not polarizing the American majority ready to see that happen.
Es importante la movilización y no la polarización de la población.
We can solve the big challenges of our time, deliver health care to every American and give everybody the freedom to walk away from their health insurance companies toward a public plan. America will support that just so long as we give you the freedom to decide whether you want that public plan in the first place. That's how we build this
Las
majority.
personas que pueden tener la oportunidad de escoger sus planes de salud.
We're going to need a nominee ready to bring Americans together.
Necesitan un nominado
We're going to need a
o
nominee who understands
un
that we
candidato
dare
que
not treat
entiende
the
que no haya
presidency like it is
división.
the only office that matters. Right here in Virginia, Your legislature is demonstrating the power of doing the right thing at the state level when we get those offices into the right hands. So when voices from those frontline districts that are so critical to keeping the House in the right hands, when voices working on those Senate races, we're going to need so badly in order to make sure that the judiciary is not permanently remade in the wrong direction. We had better make sure we've got a nominee at the top of the ticket who can not just take back the White House, but keep the House in the right hands and send Mitch McConnell packing.
Es muy importante que no solamente se gane la Casa Blanca, sino que se mantenga los demócratas como líderes en el Congreso.
We dare not ignore, we dare not dismiss, and we absolutely dare not attack those voices in the Democratic Party focusing on keeping those seats in the right hands, because the next president is going to need that in order to get any of our big, bold ideas done. And I also think it would help for us to have a nominee who can challenge this president and call him out.
Insiste que un candidato
This president
tiene que
wants to
tener
talk
la
about being there
oportunidad
for the
de
forgotten
saber
people.
y indicar que Donald Trump
Even
no
though
es
the
correcto.
only economic promise that he has kept is tax cuts for giant corporations. How about making sure he's held to account on a debate stage by a Democratic nominee who actually lives and worked in a middle-class neighborhood in the industrial Midwest in the heart of the so-called Rust Belt and can talk about what it means to have an economy
Entiende lo
that
importante de
actually
tener a un candidato que sea de la clase media y que venga de la clase trabajadora.
For a president who likes to cloak himself in the language of religion, this president, right, sends out the likes of Rush Limbaugh to give instructions on family values.
Habla de lo importante que son los
Wouldn't it
valores
be a good
familiares
idea to have
y
him
los
held
valores
to account by a
religiosos.
nominee prepared to insist that America belongs to people of every religion and of no religion equally?
Lo importante es que tener un candidato que entienda que todos
Wouldn't
son
it be a good
bienvenidos,
idea for our
todas las
nominee to be
religiones,
prepared to call out to
todos
fellow
los
believers
valores
with the
familiares.
message that God does not belong to a political party in the United States of America? And if this president keeps up that tough talk, keeps beating his chest and throwing himself military parades, maybe the time has come for a war veteran to stand next to him and educate him on how permanent war
Un
is
candidato que
not.
también como él ha sido un veterano de guerra, que entiende también a las familias que vienen de las familias militares.
You are building the campaign that will defeat this president, and this is our one shot, so we've got to get it right.
Las personas son las apropiadas. O son
And the
las
good
que
news
son-
is, we have an
tienen que estar
American
unidas
majority,
para realmente
not only to
derrotar
defeat
a
this
Donald Trump.
president, not only agreeing on what it is that we're against, but an even bigger and more powerful majority insisting on what it is that we are for. That's the real reason I asked you to picture the sun coming up that day. It's not just that we got to bring that sunrise about. It's that on that day, the next president will face challenges the likes of which we barely thought of a few years ago. And we are going to need to harness the American majority determined to do something about it. The American people already understand that this is a country that must elevate wages, empower workers, and see to it that one job is enough, whether you got a college degree or not.
Es importante que las personas también entiendan que todos son
There's
bienvenidos.
an American
Las que son
majority
preparadas
right now
con un
prepared to
grado
act
de
and
colegio
insisting
o de
that there be no
universidad
such
o no.
thing as an uninsured American. And speaking of health care, The American people already understand that in order to truly have good health in this country, we got to take that same level of urgency, the same resources, and the same openness that we have for physical medical issues, and finally bring it to bear on substance use and mental health too. We got to bring that out of the shadows and put something
tomar
about
en
it.
cuenta también programas para la salud mental, tan
There's
importantes como
already a
toda la salud
powerful
pública.
American majority that understands that part of how you honor our troops is not just to say so on a bumper sticker, but to give them a commander-in-chief who will bring an end to endless war and never allow them to be sent into a conflict that could have been prevented. But now, you've got an American majority that understands that immigration is part of the lifeblood of this country, that supports dreamers and a pathway to citizenship,
Importante también
and will
tomar en
send a
cuenta
message to those caught in limbo that este país es tu país también.
sobre reforma migratoria y
The
entender que los
majority
migrantes
now
son parte de
ready
los
to
Estados
act
Unidos.
so that this can become a country where your race has no bearing on your health or your wealth or on your experience with law enforcement in the United States of America. We must act now to make that a reality. Right now, an American majority stands ready to defend the next generation by backing up those who educate them, with a Secretary of Education who believes in public education and supports education.
Importante también un candidato que crea en la educación pública.
So you see, the American people are already there, and now we have to have the presidential leadership to get these things done. This is not something that can wait. We cannot wait 10 years. We cannot wait 4 years.
No se puede esperar 4 años o 10 años para todas estas políticas.
Everywhere I go, I meet Americans who remind me what is on the line. Just by chance, because I was campaigning, I was in the airport, ran into somebody I had served with, hadn't seen since we were both in Afghanistan, hadn't seen since she was injured in an insider attack.
Se encontró
And I saw her
uno de sus
walking down the
colegas
airport
que
concourse
fue herido
wearing
en
a t-shirt
Afganistán.
from the Wounded Warrior Project that said some assembly required. And when I asked her how she was doing, she lifted up her knee and tapped on her prosthetic leg, the part they couldn't save. She said, the Navy fixed me up just fine, and she's looking forward to her next deployment. She can't wait for a commander-in-chief who actually understands the meaning of being sent into war by the decisions of the United States President.
Importante de tener también a un veterano de guerra que entienda las necesidades de los militares y
But
de
the
los
ones who really
veteranos.
get my attention are the Americans I am meeting who are not yet even old enough to vote. We had an 11-year-old come to one of my events and raise his hand to ask about prescription drug affordability.
Habla de que un niño de 11
thought,
años
this
le
is
preguntó
pretty cool.
sobre
This is a smart kid.
prescripciones de
He wasn't asking because he's an
medicinas.
emerging healthcare policy buff. He was asking because he needs insulin and he's worried about whether he will continue to be able to get access to it. He can't wait for us to act to ensure that there is no such thing as an unaffordable prescription in the United States of America.
También comenta sobre las prescripciones y los costos de
When the
las medicinas.
13-year-old came to one of my events and let me know that she had asked for a Kevlar bulletproof backpack for Christmas, I didn't even know there was such a thing. She can't wait, because this should not even be her problem. We should worry about this sort of thing so she doesn't have to. She can't wait for us to act so that the Second Amendment can no longer be twisted into an excuse to do nothing at all about gun violence in this country.
En contra de balas. El candidato o el precandidato comenta la importancia de tener un programa sobre el control de
And when a
armas en
10-year-old comes
Estados
to one of
Unidos.
my events and diplomatically points out that he's planning to be here in the year 2100, and says that when he is, he will be looking back on the choices we made right now to see if we acted in time to create a climate that he and his future kids and grandkids could thrive in, They can't wait for us to act, to lead the world on doing something about climate change before it is too late. This is our chance, and we have to do it together.
Pero el precandidato también comenta sus planes para
It
trabajar
all
también
starts
por
by
el cambio
creating a
climático.
different kind of politics, one where the American experience is defined not by exclusion but by belonging. Look around you. We are creating the community right now to show, not just tell, what America might look like if we had the powers of the presidency in the right hands. This is our chance.
Importante de ser inclusivos y no
These are the
exclusivos.
things that we can do with our American presidents.
América
In other
tiene
words,
otro
as I
rostro.
come here one more time to look you in the eye and ask you for your vote, the reason I'm doing it, the reason I decided to run for this office, is not that I got it into my head one day that I would like to occupy it. It's that this office has a purpose, and the purpose of the presidency is not the glorification of the president. It is the unification and the empowerment of the American people to do this big thing.
El propósito de ser un presidente debe ser la unión, no la glorificación de una persona.
So if you're ready for that understanding of the presidency, if you're ready for a politics that calls everybody in, or if you're just ready to turn on the news, look at your president, and feel your blood pressure go down a little bit, send him up through the roof, this campaign is for you. So one thing we believe in is dialogue. Our numbers have grown just a little bit since we started out a year ago with a campaign team of 4 people in an office about as big as this stage I'm on. But I figure, although I've never done it with this many thousands of people, I figure there's no such thing as an audience so big we can't have some form of dialogue. So we gathered up questions. We got them in our famous fishbowl. And I'd like you to welcome to the stage Brenda, one of our best supporters, who's going to be your voice and guide this conversation. Come on up. I know I'm biased, but don't we have the best, kindest organizers, volunteers, and team members on this campaign?
What an amazing crowd. So I am, as Pete mentioned, a volunteer, and I'm delighted to be your voice this afternoon. So many of you submitted questions. I'll just start with this first one. What's been your most surreal moment of the last year? And this is from Suzanne.
All right.
Preguntas
If it's
del
your question,
público.
give a holler. I'll try to look in your direction.
Preguntas del público y una de las
there you go.
preguntas es que
Sí.
cuál
That worked out
ha
pretty
sido el
well.
momento más surreal que ha tenido el
Everything about
precandidato.
this is surreal. Look, a year and a half ago, I was an elected official, but I was also driving my Chevy to work every day. And when you
Sobre
wake
todo
up and
ha
you're
sido
trying to remember what
surreal
state you're in,
y que recuerda
or you're
desde
trying
que
to make
estaba
sure you have your
manejando su
your
Chevy,
briefing in
su
the back of your head on the latest
Chevrolet.
foreign policy just before you go on morning news, and then Lizzo walks by. You're in a room with Lizzo. You can't pay attention to anything after that. The whole thing is unreal. But the most remarkable thing in this kind of out-of-body experience is that you're in the whole country all at once. And what you find out is that the different states and communities in this country are very different, but what people are looking for is pretty much the same. People are looking
Dicen
for a
que
better
a
life
pesar de
and
que
a better
las personas
politics.
estén en
They want to
diferentes estados y
actually
tengan otros
feel
intereses,
like
quieren lo mismo.
politics is speaking to them, like the decisions that are made, especially in Washington, D.C., are done in a way that connects back to our everyday lives. And as unreal as all of this is, it brings me right back down to earth, because it turns out that politics is just people. And this is the most human process I've ever been part of. Thanks for being
Son
part of it.
procesos humanos.
Your next question, wow, especially in Arlington, really resonates. How will your administration address housing discrimination and ensure access to safe, decent housing for low income and other vulnerable populations? And this one is from Kellen Macbeth.
All right.
La segunda
So,
pregunta tiene
this
que
is
ver
so
con la
important.
vivienda.
I see you,
Cómo
more
podemos
or less.
evitar la discriminación.
And this is one of those questions I'm hearing everywhere I go. The
las
president
viviendas.
says that the economy is fantastic because the Dow Jones is looking good, right? There is not one county in the entire United States of America right now where somebody working full-time can afford a two-bedroom apartment. It is just one example of what we have got to change when it comes to access to housing. First of all, we got to make sure people get more income in the first place, which is why we got to raise the minimum wage, empower organized labor, make it possible for gig workers and domestic workers and farm workers to organize.
Dice que lo
Then we
importante
got to deal with the
es
cost side. And it's not going to get better without a real investment.
tener un mejor salario
That
para
means
que las
hundreds of
personas
billions
también
of dollars
tengan la
that will be
posibilidad
well worth
de
it
tener
to
acceso
ensure
a
that there's no longer
viviendas
wait
dignas
lists
que
for
podemos
housing
pagar.
choice vouchers for families with children, and to increase by 2 million the number of affordable housing units being built here in the United States of America. And then you mentioned housing discrimination. This is so important because it continues to happen. The value of a home in an identical neighborhood is $40,000 lower if that neighborhood is majority African American.
Dice
That
que
is going
los
on
costos
right
de
now.
vivienda
Black
son
home ownership
40%
is at the lowest level
menos
it's been
son
at since the
en
Fair Housing
vecindarios
Act
que
was passed.
son
That's not
están
going to get better
poblados
until
de
we put as much
afroamericanos.
intention into dismantling the effect of systemic racism on housing as went into it in the first place. That means affirmatively enforcing fair housing rules. It means, in my view, a 21st century Homestead Act so that families that got redlined into neighborhoods only to face being gentrified right back out of them when the prices go up have a chance to build equity and build generational wealth right where they grew up.
Importante tener reglas
This can
claras.
be a matter of life and death. Black lives are at stake not only in reforming how policing works in the United States, but also housing. Because every family deserves to be able to live in a safe neighborhood. Every family deserves to be able to live in a neighborhood free of contamination from environmental pollution, which we know disproportionately happens to Black and Latino and Native homeowners and houses. We have to act with every bit of the intention that got us to this point to get us to a better point. And when I am president, we will have a Department of Housing and Urban Development that is actually committed and has access to that housing, regardless of their background.
Con reformas adecuadas para que todos puedan tener acceso a vivienda digna.
How are you going to empower youth activism? And this is from a 17-year-old named Ellie.
All right. Hey, right here.
Una
So like I
persona de
said, you don't even
17
have to be
años
old enough to
pregunta
vote to have an impact.
cómo
And
pueden
youth activism is part of what
promover
is
el
changing
activismo.
how the world works right now. Look, the longer you're planning to be here, the more you have at stake in those decisions that are about to be made. And I think it's really revealing. For example, the Times Person of the Year, if she were a U.S. citizen, would not even be old enough to vote. But the climate activism of Greta Thunberg is helping change the conversation. Same thing on gun violence. When students march for their lives, it is changing things in a way that no politician could. And here's the really good news. This isn't the 60s where a young generation took to the streets to protest against their parents. Right now, what I'm seeing is young people marching for their lives when it comes to gun violence, demanding we do better on climate change. And I'm seeing their parents and their grandparents at their side cheering them on. That's what we saw at the Women's March.
Observa que
That
muchos
is
de
so
los jóvenes
powerful.
hoy en día no están
I know
en
you
los
don't
60
yet have the power
donde
of a
peleaban
vote,
con sus
although you're
padres
about
para
to.
ir
But you have
a
another kind of power,
ser activistas.
which is
Ahora
when
los
you look in
activistas
the
se
eyes of
acompañan con sus
anybody who
padres
is
y
old
sus
enough to
abuelos
vote, anybody who holds
peleando
authority,
derechos.
and you raise these questions, like what are you doing to keep me safe? A voice
Y
rises
también
up
peleando por
in
la
the
seguridad.
heart of any thinking person, which says, do not let this young person down. The power of that voice can do as much to change our politics as anything that any one person running for office can. And as president, I will be counting on youth activism to push our country forward and make sure these changes actually happen. Great power.
The next question is from Terry. We need a president who believes in science. How will you support medical research for cures?
Otra pregunta
Remember
tiene
when
que
you
ver
could
con la
just
ciencia.
assume?
Un presidente que
I'm sorry that this
crea
has
en
become
la
a
ciencia
politically controversial idea, but yes,
y
the
en las
president and the
investigaciones que
administration
ayuden
should believe in
a
science
descubrir y entender
and should
las
believe the
enfermedades
recommendations
que
of
se pueden
scientists
evitar.
and should make sure that people running agencies are committed to their mission. For example, someone in charge of environmental protection who believes in climate science. And as Terry's question suggests, a lot of this means making sure that we are funding basic research. This is part of how growth and development happens. Maybe only a company could invent the iPhone, but only federal research could invent the internet.
Promover
The same thing is true in the
fondos
medical space.
para
I'm delighted to see
investigaciones
people take
médicas.
basic research and run with it to create cures, but it's not all going to happen for profit. We've got to fund the research that advances humanity and advances our ability to find cures for what literally ails us as an American people and as a human species. And America will restore its leadership role in the sciences under my administration. And we're going to need to call a lot of scientists into service to help us get that done. And I bet there's some folks right here, right now, who would be willing to be part of that.
Y a los médicos y a los investigadores unirse a su campaña. Porque él cree en la ciencia.
This has been really inspiring. I'm told that we have time for just one last question. I know. How are you going to give hope to a generation of the hymnless? This is from a spiritual LGBTQ plus person, Justin.
Generation of the hymnless. All right, very good.
Hymnless.
So we draw hope from different sources. Some draw hope from faith. Some draw hope from family. I think we can all draw hope from right around us. I'll tell you where mine comes from. People ascribe it to youth, but it's actually from experience. I think about the hope that my city represents. Our city was typical of the so-called Rust Belt. A decade ago, they said we were dying because all the factories closed and so many people had moved out. And as mayor, I was able to guide that city and join with neighbors as we picked ourselves up, defied what the press was saying about us, welcomed new residents into our community, formed a different future, and are now growing for the first time in a long time. If there's a temptation to give up hope in our capacity for unity as a country, I think about it in terms of the experience I had overseas deployed with people completely different from me. I mean, really different politically, as well as regionally and racially. But you know what? We trusted each other with our lives because we had to. Somebody was getting into my vehicle in Afghanistan. They didn't care if I was going home to a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They didn't care if I was a Democrat or a Republican. We trusted each other with our lives because we had to. And having seen that happen, I believe you don't have to go to war in order to have that experience. It's part of why I believe in national service, creating 1 million voluntary paid national service opportunities for you. And yes, I also draw a lot of my own hope from the LGBTQ experience. Look, we got a long way to go when it comes to equality. There's no question of that.
Entiende que
And
hay
when
un
I am
camino
president,
largo donde
we
tiene
will.
que ver con la
Beginning
equidad.
with the Equality Act and continuing with an end to the war on trans Americans and affirmatively building up everybody's sense of belonging in this country. We do have a long way to go, but
Sabe que hay un
why
largo
I am
camino para
hopeful
la
is the
equidad y la
fact that
igualdad.
I'm standing in front of you as somebody who was raised at a moment when you thought you could either serve or you could be gay. You definitely could not be both of those things. You could either be out or you could be involved in public service and politics, where I came from. Not both. You could either be married or you could be gay. Not both. And I'm standing right in front of you as a veteran, happily married, running for president of the United States. That's what I want. Let's do one more. Let's say one more.
So the last question, and just I happened to pull two, so this is the last one. How was meeting Ellen? And this is from Rachel.
Como fuera haber conocido a su esposo.
Ellen is the best.
y haber conocido a Ellen.
So we need a little more of that. We need a little more kindness in this world. I understand that there are times when we've got no choice but to fight. And I'm ready for the fight of our lives in order to make sure that we make Donald Trump a one-term president. I think we're all ready for that.
Que todo el mundo está listo para hacer que Donald Trump solamente
Again,
tenga
this
un
is where I
periodo,
view things a
pero
little differently than Senator Sanders. I don't believe we can
Pero
allow
esa
ourselves to get to the
diferencia
point
del senador
where it starts to
Sanders-
feel like fighting is the point. Or gets to where
Esa
like
diferencia
fighting's
de
all we
Sanders
got.
porque
The point
él
is not
piensa
the
que no hay
fight.
que
The
estar
point is what
peleando.
lies on the other side of the fight. And what I see there is an experience of belonging in our country that we can build together. That we can only build together. That we cannot build by
Entender
beating
que
each
todos
other
pueden
over the
estar
head.
unidos, que hay que estar unidos y no en confrontación, sino mantener la unidad.
Anyway, those are some of the things that go through my mind when I had the wonderful opportunity to spend time with Ellen.
Y es lo que le hace
All right,
recordar
now our
cuando
time really is
conoció
up. One more big
a la
thank you to Brenda
famosa
for being your voice.
presentadora Ellen DeGeneres, y se siente con mucho honor de ser
And I
la
want
voz
to
de
ask
la
you to
unión.
soak up the sense of belonging that we are creating right here. Politics will be
sentimiento de
fierce
pertenencia que están
sometimes,
creando
but it
hoy
is
en día.
not just combat. It can be about building community.
Que
It can
tiene
be
que ver
about
con
lifting
desarrollar
each other up.
comunidades,
That's why I'm in this in the
de
first place.
ayudarse
And
unos a
so the
los
biggest
otros.
thing that I'm asking of you, besides, of course, your vote,
Les pregunto a cada una de las personas, aparte del
is
voto,
to find people in your life who maybe did get into that
es
temptation
encontrar personas
to walk
en
away from it
su,
all because it's so
en su
exhausting,
vida
because it's so crushing sometimes, and to draw them back in the name of whatever hope
encontrar a
propelled
personas
you
que
into this
estén
space, whatever
decaídos
hope made
y
you think
darle
it was worth
esperanzas.
standing in a line a mile long just so we could spend some time together talking about the future of this country.
De la misma manera que muchos saben que trajeron a otras personas para
I know
hablar del
why
futuro
hope as a
con
word
tweets.
went out of style for a little bit in American politics because of the bleakness and the division of the moment we're in. But I would also argue
Entiende que
you
hay
are
muchas
here because
divisiones.
some sense of hope tells you
Hay
that
muchas
our
divisiones,
lives
pero
could
que
be
sabe que
better
muchas de las personas están aquí porque
depending on the
tienen esperanza que
decisions
sus
they
vidas
make in
sean
those big
mejores.
white whose hands are on the pulleys and levers of American government. It's why I'm here. There is a reason why. Have you ever noticed on the
El
news,
hecho o
they
la
took the
razón del
word
que él está acá
hopeful and they turned it into a
porque él
noun
quiere dar
and they use it as
esperanza,
another word for candidates on the
sentido de
2020 hopeful.
esperanza.
That's what I'm doing here.
Esperanza para el 2020.
How fitting. Because running for office is an act of hope. And so is helping somebody run, so is volunteering, so is voting. You are spreading that sense of hope that it does in fact matter who gets their hands on those pulleys and levers and what values guide those hands. So can I look to you to spread that sense of hope to everybody that you know?
Así que los quiero ver a todos con ese sentimiento de esperanza y de fe.
And are you ready for that sunrise when we put the Trump administration behind us and move forward into something new?
Si están preparados para ver la nueva luz una vez que ya no esté el
Virginia,
presidente
I
Donald
think you are
Trump.
going to help make me the next president of the United States. And when you do, I will do everything I can to make you proud. Thank you for coming.
Espero que los votantes de Virginia lo hagan presidente y él no los va a
Let's
decepcionar.
go make history on March 3rd. And let's win this thing in November. Thank you.
Agradece a darle gobierno hoy y espera su voto en noviembre. Se termina la transmisión del evento en Arlington, estado de Virginia, del precandidato demócrata Pete Buttigieg.